Today is May 27th, 2015, and the lighting for this video clip is not too good. But anyway, I have an important video clip to make, and I still need to work on my RICO video clips where I'm kind of going in order consecutively, talking about government rape and conspiracy to rape me and everything. But another thing that was happening was I did witness Bob Jr. being raped, and there's more than one Bob Jr. I've said that there are 2 or 3, and there's also more than one Dixie. And I have also mentioned throughout my video clips, and for a very long time, actually, for over 10 years now, between my blog and my tweets and everything. But I talked about it much earlier than that, many different times, but it always got quashed and removed, from any kind of a public site, and things stolen and disappearing and that kind of thing. But and I think that was mostly done because back then, most of the time when I was trying to publish that, I was a teenager, and so I was still, under the quote-unquote guardianship or whatever of my parents, who were controlled by the government. And they were being controlled a lot of the time, from what I could tell, by rape, by torture and rape. And also I was getting raped all the time and tortured. And so I can name like several different instances where I saw Bob Jr. getting raped, and also with Dixie. And one person that I want to mention for this video clip is somebody regarding one of the Dixies. And before I say that, I need to mention that it was when I was a kid, I knew that there were 2 or 3, and I had even told the people, because sometimes they were trying to, they acknowledged, the government didn't question me, like they at least give me credibility as a kid for seeing that, yeah, there was more than one Bob and Dixie. And they actually didn't challenge me on that. They didn't try to say, you're nuts, everybody accepted it. And then when I was older, that's when it was kind of like, either you go along with the program and you agree to lie and to provide a cover for the Dixies and the Bobs and everybody who escorts them back and forth and in the hiding and all of that. It was kind of like, either you go along with that whole program, is how I would call it, how I'd put it, or you get called crazy and told, that it's not true, and other people are told that, and you're nuts to say such a thing, and you need some help and all of that. So so up to a certain point, it was tolerated, as I say, and then it was kind of like, then the government would pressure you and say, okay, it's decision time. And so one of the times I would have to check to find out when George Lucas came up with his idea, or when he first produced the Star Wars movies, or the very first one even, because I was involved in it, and my family was. My parents were involved in it. My whole family was involved in that whole everything that went into that production. And I was really little, but I remember telling him they were coming up with a character of R2-D2. And actually, I haven't seen Star Wars movies for a long time, so I think that R2-D2 is in the first one. But R2-D2 stood for, I said there should be a robot. Like, he was asking for some of my ideas. And I said that it would be cool if they had a robot, because I liked robots back then. And I'd seen some robots. And I said, should have, and he said, well, what kind of a name would you give it? And I said, maybe something like R2D2. And he said, well, what's that for? And I said, well, like the letter and then a number. So that it's, and then I said, well, R2D2 or R3D3. Or I said R2D3. And he said R2D3. And, or, you know, R3D3. And I said, well, yeah, because I know that there's 3 of them. And I actually said there were 3. And that was when I was a kid. And I do clearly remember that it was very distinct to me as a kid at that time. And it was acknowledged back then that there were 3 of them. But then I said, well, I guess just say R2D2, like for Robert, 2 Roberts, and D2 was for 2 Dixies. And I said, well, say R2D2 because it's easier to say than R3D3 or R2D3. And if you say R2D2, it's like R2D2, not R2D3 or R3D3. It's more, you know, it was like a linguistic decision I'd made. But I remember at the time that one of the Dixies was really upset because she was really had been, I could tell, hoping that I would stick with the R3D3, regardless of how it sounded or whatever, because I guess, you know, it was clear, and she wanted it somehow documented somewhere or remembered by me that there were 3 of them, and to not negate one of them just because of how it sounded. So I can look back at that time in my life and remember some of those director movie kinds of character formation decisions. And I can definitely say that I do recall very clearly that I knew that there were 3 Dixies. So so when I say one of the Dixies, you know, probably all 3 of them are getting raped, but maybe one of them a lot more than the other. I'm not sure. But one of them was really violently raped by James Comey. And he is now like the FBI director. He's the director of the entire FBI of the United States. And it's really a problem because, you know, what happened is I walked into a room and there was this big bed. I'm not sure which house I was in, if it was my house or a different house, but I don't think it was my house. And I walked in, and my mother was trying to get away, and she actually was over, like here is James, like I'm actually on my bed right now because I'm in my bedroom in this RV, and so I'll show you sort of how it was. I'm packing, so I've got some boxes over here and everything. Okay, that is like over there, and pardon that light over there because I was cleaning some stuff. And anyway, lots of packing. I'm trying to remodel and do some things to do what I can to make it look better. But over here is like the head of the bed, okay, and from the perspective of the camera over here, that would be my perspective as a kid. And James Comey was lying down this direction, or he was kind of sitting. He was like halfway reclined. I would say he was sitting upright, at least, when I walked in, because he sat up or something, or he was lunging for my mom. And my mom was trying to look for an escape, and it didn't look like she was trying to get out of the bed, like it did not look like she was like embarrassed that I was there, and so she was trying to escape the situation. It looked way more like she was traumatized and scared for her life, and she was hoping to escape. And she, I think when the door opened, she thought maybe that was her chance. And she was actually, I think I must have heard something, because when I walked in, I didn't even see her facing the other direction, like facing him. I saw her facing this way, like facing this way, and he was behind her, sitting behind her, and she was reaching over the bed with this horrible look on her face, just terror, and clawing, trying to, like this, like trying to get off of that bed and away from him. And he grabbed her and said something like, "Where do you think you're going, bitch?" You know, something like that. And he had a knife, and he held a knife up to her to keep her from going anywhere. And I think he had a gun. But I was totally shocked. I, was, and, definitely it was terror. I mean, I've seen my mom look embarrassed and like caught, you know how a parent would might feel embarrassed to have their kid walk in a situation that if it was inappropriate, or they felt ashamed or whatever. And it wasn't like that. That wasn't her expression. Her expression was of it looked like fear and terror and hope of trying to escape. And I did see that on my mom a few times, because there were a couple of times she was trying to get away from some man who was going after her. And so there was also a man that I had referred to as JC, like Jesus Christ. And I'm not sure if it was, and sometimes James Comey would refer to himself like that, as that. He'd say, "I'm Jesus Christ, your Savior." And he could be really creepy. He was all into this whole thing of calling Barack Obama king, and saying how Barack Obama was king. He was really into this weird Dungeons and Dragons role-playing kinds of talk. And he would say things like that he was Jesus Christ. And so, and that was definitely James Comey that would say stuff like that. But I don't remember but there was one that my mom was really terrified by, because I believe he was raping her repeatedly. And it was either James Comey, who referred to himself as Jesus Christ, or it was Dr. John Crane, I think. And that was someone that I referred to as JC, like Jesus. So you heal people. That's what I had said to him. And I came up with that one day. And I'd said that about Dr. Crane, who was a doctor in Wenatchee. And I later found out, when I was older myself, that he can be spontaneously violent and vicious. And so it's very possible that he was a really serious and dangerous problem that I was unaware of. I believe that there are a couple of situations that my mom was trapped into that I didn't have very good knowledge about. And she was really a hostage, and things were really dangerous, and I didn't even know it. And then the other JC that I knew of was James Cartwright. And I didn't really see as much directly with James Cartwright, or hear as much about him specifically. I take that back. I was involved with him a lot and trafficked back and forth around him. As to my mom, I'm not completely sure what the full extent of her experiences were with him. But I do know that those were the 3 JCs that I knew as a kid. And I knew of that at least a couple of them my mom was really afraid of. So I think it's really scary that all of those people are in power positions and have been in control over, my kids, me, medical care, the entire FBI and, you know, the Pentagon, I mean, whatever. So, and those were a couple of men that are extremely dangerous. My mom would know exactly which ones were the worst. But there was even more than that, too. That's just an example of something that I do remember clearly. And there were many other situations, you know, occurring where we were being raped and tortured. And then the government was forcing my parents to sign things and do whatever they wanted. And then when they were removing my babies from me that I had, they were telling my parents to lie and say that, oh, it never happened. And if my parents didn't lie and go along with every single thing that the government said, they'd just do all the same things that they were doing already again. And do things that were worse. They did really horrible, horrible things. So, anyway, that is, I think that Star Wars, I'm not quite sure, but I think it was like 1979 that the first one came out. I'd have to double check, but, you know, I definitely remember being part of coming up with ideas for characters for the movie. And I definitely remember that there is more than one Bob and Dixie, and I believe there were 3. And at the time, I knew there were 3. But I thought that it sounded better to say 2 of them for the robot name. And the thing is it's really easy to hold someone hostage if you're identical and you look alike. Because the other thing is some of the people, my mom, I know, was getting raped like on a daily basis. She was somehow getting trafficked by cops. Well, she was getting trafficked by cops back and forth to the house in one time of my life, daily. So I would open the door when my mom would get home, and often whoever was dropping her off, there were state troopers there. They were in Moses Lake, Washington, and they were wearing the state trooper uniforms. And they were dropping her off, and my mom, every single time my mom was getting home from wherever she was, every single time she was going to the bathroom was the first place she would go, and she would take a bath. And it was like really depressing mood and everything. And I sensed as a kid that she was taking a bath because she felt dirty because somebody had been sexually assaulting her and forcing her to do something. I mean, like the time of day that she'd be taking a bath like that wasn't like normal. And then she was showing signs of trauma because she started cutting herself. And at first I thought she was just cutting herself with razors, like shaving. But then I realized she's really cutting herself. Like she wanted me to remember, I think, that, and it's actually, I'm not quite sure that she cut herself or that somebody cut her before she had to go to the bathroom and then come out and say that the cuts were from shaving, because she would have cuts all over her body. And I would say, what happened? And she would say, oh, I cut myself shaving. But the thing is like, she would be going directly from these cops who dropped her off straight to the bathroom, and then coming out and like blood everywhere and cuts all over her legs. And then sometimes she was trying to cover it up, but you could see this blood trickling like on the ground, or like a scab would come off or something. But typically, I mean, most of the time it was like fresh cuts every single time she was coming out of the bathroom. And these cuts were like different kinds of cuts. They did look like razor cuts, but the thing is I know how this government works and how the cops are. They can get a razor. They could get it like a regular razor that you shave your legs with. And there's no reason why any cop or whoever was raping her wouldn't cut her with a razor, like you're shaving your legs, and then tell her, now you go to the bathroom and you pretend like you did that to yourself. That is definitely something that the government would do. And they came up with a lot of clever ways of torturing people and physically harming and assaulting, and then trying to make it look like it was all an accident or someone did it to himself. And they used to drop her off smirking and everything. My mom looked like panicked and terrorized. So the number of times she was cut like that, I just don't think that my mom would do that to herself. And it didn't look like, it was too frequent to be an accident. Like, nobody cuts themselves that badly with a razor every single day. You know, people are more careful than that and figure out how to shave their legs better. You know, I mean, and the way that she wasn't able to talk, like, you could tell that her speech was silenced. So the government has definitely been using police officers throughout my life, my parents' lives, to torture us and to physically assault and maim us. And this is how the government is right now controlling a kidnapping of my most recent baby girl. And it's how they're controlling my parents too. So I wanted to make that very clear.